for the last 13 years. And if you, like me, you have a passion for volunteering, which I know you do, you're coming through as CFRs, and you like to give back to the community and learn new skills at the same time. So today is just a short session on the Porthcawl RNLI and the RNLI in general. I'll give you a quick history to do with Porthcawl RNLI, and then we'll talk about the RNLI in general. Show you a couple of photos around the Porthcawl lifeboat station, perhaps. And then lastly, we'll just go through a few things with casualty care and how you could help the Porthcawl casualty carers, perhaps, and how we could help you at the same time. Okay. Right. So first thing first, we'll jump into the history of Porthcawl. So there was very little leisure boating during the early to mid 1900s, and the rescue at sea was left to the lifeboats from Mumble and Barry Dock. And then we had World War I and World War II, and with the rationing ceasing and with normality returning, the sort of trips to the seaside became popular again. And because of that, people started getting into trouble again through swimming or by using small vessels. So Porthcawl was identified as a station to have some small vessels, some small fast vessels, which could do the rescuing. Atlantic College, which is up by Nash Point, if anybody knows where that is in South Wales. They did all their training there during the summer and the winter in the open water pool session, so they're exposed to the elements, far tougher than I am. Yeah, and with the advancement of the skills on the crews, things became better as time ensued, like through trial and error, better boats, better equipment, and better skills. Today we have two vessels at Porthcawl Lifeboat Station, the Atlantic 85, which is the Rose of the Shires, and D-Class, which is the Jean Royale, which we've had since 2012, since Atlantic College's D-Class has been decommissioned. But basically the roles are the same as always. The RNLI's motto is saving lives at sea, but as you'll find out later in the session, it's not just about saving lives at sea. Just quick questions. Would anyone like to guess what sort of emergencies we're likely to attend at sea? You can type it in the space bar. Unfortunately, I can't hear anybody, so I'm a bit, yeah. Drowning, absolutely. Liners swept offshore, yes, a big one. People cut off by the tide, absolutely, big one. Kids being blown out to sea by lifeboats, yeah, brilliant. Yeah, all the rest is in distress. People stranded on the rocks. Animal rescues, yes, that's a big one. Some dogs, yeah, engine failures, capsizes, and paddle boarders being blown offside. Absolutely, that's good. Because the Bristol Channel, I don't know if everybody knows, but it's got one of the biggest tidal ranges in the world. I think it's only second to Anchorage in Alaska. So from when it drops to when it comes up, especially in spring tide, people will either go down the channel or up the channel if it comes in, or will be cut off by the tide. So absolutely is a big one. And I see there's one more there, is a search and rescue of missing people. Absolutely. Sometimes we'll be out there for hours looking for people, and it turns out they're actually sat at home. So unfortunately, there is that type of rescue, but it just gives us the constant training as well. So that's always good. So those are the rescues at sea. What do you think? There's some other things that we are engaged in as casualty carers. Can you think of maybe some other sort of medical emergencies that we would be involved in that you might be as well? Yes, flood rescue is a big one. Absolutely. We've got, whoops, I just knocked that. We've got two volunteers who are involved with the flood rescue services. So absolutely. Yeah, and they got bronze medals for them a few years ago. Yes. fast water rescue. I think swift water training is a skill you can, I think the flood rescue and the swift water rescue might go together as well. I'm just thinking about maybe in general, because during the summer months, yes, lifeguarding with the RNLI is a massive one, absolutely. Any sort of beach disasters, yes, and that's the whole thing. So we might not necessarily be at sea when we do our rescues. You know, because during the summer months, I'm not sure if all of you have seen maybe Postcall, but this goes for every lifeboat station throughout the UK. During the busy summer months, you could have anybody walking around at sea. Anybody walking around the lifeboat station or come out of the pub drinking, and people will. I'll just put it up there. You know, the normal chest pains, traumas, and collapses. Where people automatically come to if they don't think about dialing 999 immediately, but they see the lifeboat station is open, they might just wander in there and say, look, we've got somebody who's fallen off his bike, please can you come and help? So there's definitely a crossover between what we do as casualty carers on the RNLI and the community first responders, which we know you guys do. Suicides, I know, absolutely. So sometimes with people threatening suicide, or sometimes it's actually occurred. Okay, brilliant. Thank you for your input, guys. We'll go on to the next slide. Right. So here we have, as you can see, we've got the ALB stations, which are the offshore lifeboat stations. They've got the big boats. And then we've got the inshore lifeboat station, which is the smaller boats. The big ones can actually tumble in the surf and they can self-right, whereas the smaller ones we try to avoid being tumbled by the surf at all. Even though we can right the boats, they're not as robust as the offshore lifeboats, the ALBs, which are normally involved in rescues of much bigger vessels, sort of, you know, oil tankers, those sorts of things. We can manage to keep them offshore, and the big ALBs can go further offshore as well. Yes, here's my first one. So these are all the stations around the South Wales coast. You can see Porthcawl is roughly in the middle there, and we are flanked between. So we were sort of halfway between Barry and Swansea. We're flanked by two ILB stations, which is Port Talbot to the west. And can anybody guess which lifeboat station which is to the east of us, which isn't on there? And what we like to do is we like to tease them a little bit about it, because they've got exactly the same boats as us, but for some reason they haven't featured on the RNLI map of South Wales. They're a little bit east. Yeah, that's it. Well done, Rodri. Yeah, Penarth to the east, which is not on the map, which, like I said, we like to tease them about it a bit. Maybe it's because they have nice calm water over there. So no, but seriously, no, they do a fantastic job, and we're good friends with them, and they've helped us out with training, and we've helped them out with training as well in the past. So lovely. So then the big ALB stations are Mumbles to the west again, and then Barry Dock to the east. And then there's one thing that I haven't mentioned on here, which is Weston-super-Mare. They're often involved with mud rescues. So they actually have a hovercraft over there, which is something completely different. Again, I've never seen the hovercraft in action, but I know it exists. But you know, because of the big rising tide that we have in the Bristol Channel, there are lots of mud rescues, and it is a very, very important thing. The best thing, obviously, to get to people is by using the hovercraft. Lovely. Thank you very much for your input, guys. Right. So next, we'll just go through a couple of statistics. Lifeboat. So, like yourselves, if you're volunteering with CFRs or like the ambulance service, police, everything else, we're available 24/7, 365 days of the year, 366 on the leap year. Can anybody guess how many people who work for the RNLI, without looking at the chart now, how many are volunteers? So just have a quick little guess. How many people who work for the RNLI are volunteers? You're not allowed to look it up. Okay. Yeah, I don't actually know the number. Maybe I should have said percentage-wise. Maybe I should have said I don't actually know the exact figure, so I'll get back to you on that one, guys. But 55,000, yeah, it might not be. But you know, if you've got fundraisers and everything else, yeah, 90%. So I've got 95% all volunteers. So we all give our time, but like I say, you give your time, but you to the community, but you get those skills back again by all your extra learning that you have. So yeah, 95%. So Porthcawl, one of the busiest stations in all of the UK. Can anybody guess how much it would be to deck out a crew member? So to get a crew member fully crewed, so all your wet weather gear, your life jacket, your gecko helmet, your pager. Can anybody have a guess as to how much it would be? 2.5, yes. 2K, 2.5. That sounds about right. Yes. I think it's a bit misleading on the side there, because it does say that it's just over £1,500, but then all the other bits are extra. So life jacket, safety helmet, and pager. Whereas the all-weather lifeboat crew members are slightly different. So I'm not sure. It's either 2,500 with all the kit, or it's 1,500 with just the basics and then everything else on top. So yes, thank you very much, Alice, for your input. I've got one more question as well. Does anybody know where the money comes from for the RNLI? Where we get most of our money? I was stupid with the slide because I've got all the answers there. Donations, absolutely, donations and fundraising. But I'll tell you the biggest one is donations left in wills. That's it. Yeah, well done, Roger. So people in wills, so 2/3 of the money comes from wills, and the other third then comes from donations given by people. And this is why we have a massive volunteer team doing fundraising, because without the volunteers, we wouldn't exist. And that's the one thing people always say, oh, RNLI, you guys are so brave going out there doing your job. Well, we wouldn't be able to do it unless it was for the charities and the people who actually raise funds for us. So they are actually the most important members on our team. So yes, thank you very much if you've all donated to the RNLI before. That's brilliant. I was going to ask you a question. Which one is going to be the busiest lifeboat station? But I've already put the answer up there. It's Tower Station on the Thames. But Porthcawl is one of the busiest, if not the busiest, in Wales, and it's been like that for a couple of years running. But like I say, definitely one of the busiest in all of the UK. So great. Right. So next, I don't know. Has everybody been to Porthcawl before? I've just got a couple of shots of Porthcawl, and just want to point out all the bits here. You know, if you're from North Wales or from anywhere else and haven't been to Porthcawl, I'll just go through a couple of things, some hazards, some dangers that we normally face. I've got a little laser pointer here. It does work. Oh, fab. There we go. So over here we've got a big building called the National Coast Watch, and they actually help us out by the daylight hours. They sit in a little office up here, and they've got all sorts of fancy equipment and telescopes and all sorts. And they will keep an eye on the beaches for us, and will alert us if they've seen anything out of the ordinary, objects floating in the water, people in trouble or cut off as well. But they normally operate during the daylight hours during the busy seasons as well. But you can see channel 85 on VHF if you need to get a hold of them. Otherwise, you just dial 909. So this is the end of Porthcawl Pier here, and you can see the lighthouse. But right on the end there is Nash Point Lighthouse, and that's about where we operated. We just go around the corner and heading east. That would be our locality, the end of our locality going east. Looking south from Porthcawl, you guys can see we've got some dangers here. Some rocks, we can be very slippery. We've got a quick rising tide, and surf throwing up big pebbles and rocks, which people sometimes think, oh, it's a lovely day, let's go look at the big waves crashing into Porthcawl. And you might have seen that on the media. And the one thing people don't actually think about is in those big waves, sometimes there's big stones or pebbles. And if one of them hit you, you'd be knocked out cold. Yeah, so very important. Big waves come. I'm sure you can advise people, don't jump around in the surf, or yeah. Right. And here is a picture going west, looking west from the front of Porthcawl. You'll probably be able to see some some steps here as well, which what people think of steps, which is our new breakwater. But all along here, some pubs. So during the busy summer months, I'm sure as CFRs, can you guys think of a couple of things? This is what I say. So we've got our rescue out at sea, but then during the busy summer months, what are some of the calls that you as CFRs might be called to, and we as lifeboat crew could potentially be on the same call? Absolutely. Falls and fractures, absolutely. Yep. And the slippery slopes and the rocks, yeah. And then we've got all these pubs along here. So what do you, I know for the last year it's been a bit quiet, but during the hot summer months, we've got people coming out of here and then sitting down here and then sometimes just passing out in the sun. And we get somebody calling us to say, look, we've got somebody collapse on the seafront. And most of the time they're probably just drunk. Absolutely, sunstroke, heat stroke is a big thing in Porthcawl. People getting burnt all the time. People who are stuck indoors and might not think about the sea so much. And yeah, heat stroke is a massive thing. So we might get called to that as well as yourselves. Okay, thank you for your input. Next, we've got Porthcawl Marina. This used to be the outer harbour in Porthcawl, where the sailing ships would take. Do anybody know the history of what you think was loaded onto those sailing ships? Because Wales was renowned for it. Yeah, children jumping off the pier, absolutely. Shock. Coal export, absolutely. Coal export. So we used to have, back in the day, used to have, like we said, the outer harbour. They used to bring them down on the railway when Porthcawl used to have a railway, and upload lots of coal, and that would be exported then. Sheep, and another good export. Great. Yeah, we like to keep the sheep for ourselves. Or we can export them to New Zealand, but they've got enough sheep of their own. Fab. So the new marina that we have here that you guys can see, that opened in 2014, and it's got space for about 70 berths, 70 berths. So that's quite a bit. And if you look up here, this is our little boat that's been donated to the RNLI. And it's called the Black Pig, and that is a boat that we use for our training. So that would be a casualty vessel. So anytime any of you are down Porthcawl, please come and knock the door and introduce yourselves, and we're very happy to show you around. We normally open on a Sunday day and during the Wednesday evening. So if any of you are around, please come and say hello. Right. Let's have a quick look. Right, so here we go. We've got the slipway and pier. Somebody earlier on was saying that they've got yeah. So Jay has said they've got people jumping off the pier in Holyhead. Whoops, how do I go back one? Sorry, here we go. Sorry, guys. What Jay said. So we've got people, as you can see over here. There's lots of fishermen. People have fallen in before. We'll have people who threaten suicide. But when the tide goes completely out, there's rock all the way along here. But when the tide comes right up to the end here, we'll have lots of people jumping in off the sea, and that's relatively safe. But some people misjudge how shallow the water is, and we've had a few nasty injuries of people jumping in here before. And then obviously, that concerns people's spine as well. So again, that might be something you're involved in if you're in the area, or could be called to as a first responder if the lifeboat station isn't open. So there we go. Thank you. Let's go on to the next one. So this is just a quick, can you guys have a quick little, just have a look. Can you highlight some PPE? Can you all see some PPE there that we would use? Is it just, you're not supposed to look at the discarded mask, which should be in the bin. So I want to point that out. Boots, helmet, excellent. Life jacket, absolutely on the left there. Yeah, and we've got our dry suits, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. I don't know if anybody's mentioned these ones up here. I'll tell you what, so these are called our woolly bears. So they go underneath our dry suits, and they are made of polypropylene, and they will wick away all the sweat. So when you get, even during the summer months, it actually helps to wick away the sweat from you. It does get hot inside the dry suit, but if you get into the water, it doesn't matter if you get yeah, it doesn't matter how hot you are. Once you get in the water, you've got to have a one of these woolly bears on, because you do get cold very, very quickly, even in the summer months. So, and if you get separated from the boat or whatever, these are the sorts of things that will save your life. So, yep, we've got the dry suits, like somebody said, absolutely. Some flares, which are kept on the boat. We've got, yes, and we do have personal flares, handheld flares in the life jackets as well. Fantastic. Gloves for winter months, an absolute must. The only thing when we don't wear gloves is when we work with the lines or with the ropes, because we can get it caught in the line, and that can actually cause a nasty degloving incident. And the gecko, which in itself, like we said on the previous slide, is about 500 pounds. And some of the geckos actually have cameras on them, and I'll show you right at the end. There'll be a little video that has got some footage from the gecko helmets as well. Rightio, let's go on. Camera Portugal. Oh, is my little light flashing? Yes, that was our Simon M's. Is my light flashing? We've got little cameras mounted on the side, and it shows that it's actually on by little light flashing on the side. Fantastic. So here's the crew changing room, and this is a view of all the dry suits over there, and they've got steel toe caps and steel plate in the bottom as well, because sometimes we go to different vessels, there's sharp things, sharp rocks, and they've got padded knees and padded pockets in the knees. So when we actually squatting down doing CPR or on the rocks or helping out, they actually save our knees. Was one of the first things to go. They've got rubber neck and wrist seals as well to keep us nice and dry, and sometimes they tear and we get wet. So we know about that very quickly. So here we go. So next is our little boat, the Jean Royale. It's got a crew of about 2 or 3. Length is 5 meters. Weight is 400 kilograms, and when it becomes waterlogged, it can be even heavier than that. We've had an incident where the boat has actually flipped on the beach near Ogmore by Sea, and if you are underneath the boat, then there's going to be a massive problem, because you cannot lift that boat up. So that's one of the main things we've got to watch, is that we don't capsize at sea, especially with this one inshore. Top speed is 25 knots, and it can, so for an hour and a half you can drive out, an hour and a half you can drive back, and you'll have enough fuel for that. So that covers about sort of 75 nautical miles. Yeah, okay. Can anybody tell me how many casualties do you think you can get on board of on board this little boat? If you have to pack everybody in tightly, how many do you think we can have? 6? Yeah, close. 4, somewhere in between those two. 5, brilliant, excellent, thank you. Yeah, 5 is the official, but we can obviously do more than one trip. So here we've got the tool track, and this is the vehicle that actually pushes the D class into the sea. It's got a capacity of 2, and it's very, very good for beach conditions. It's got those tracks on the side. The only thing, we've had an issue where it's been stuck in the water before and has become waterlogged as well, but that's our problem, not yours. So here we have the D class, and just to point out, this is a stern view, but if you were ever, we always keep our first aid equipment in the front there. So if you were ever wondering where the first aid kit is on the RNLI, if you were ever asked to get something or help out, it would be in the front there. Okay, so there's a little cabinet, but storage is obviously very limited, dry storage on the D class as well. Next, we've got a big tractor. This is the Taylor's tractor, and this is the tractor that will push the big lifeboat out. And there's four big wheels to watch out for on this vehicle, especially on a hot summer's day when the pages go off and there's a lot of public around. And one of the big things we want is the shore crew to help to keep people away from the wheels. Lovely. So this is our Atlantic 85, the Rose of the Shires. It's got a crew of 4. Its length is, it's called the Atlantic 85 because the length is roughly 8.5 meters. Weight is 1.8 tons, and that's without the water ballast. We've got a water ballast we can take in for rough conditions, which could stabilize the boat more. We make it very heavy, but we can actually get through the surf on very thingy days, on very rough days. But on a nice quiet day, if there's an immediate call, say a fisherman has fallen off the water and it's a quiet day, we can actually dump the ballast, which would make the boat lighter by a ton, and we can get to the casualty a lot quicker. So maximum speed 35 knots. The range and the endurance is about 2.5 hours, so slightly less than the D class. And it's got big engines, together make 230 horsepower. Can anybody, again, guess how many survivors or casualties can we get on board the 85 if we have to pack them in tightly? 10, 12? A bit more than that? Lots, yes. So say we've got a big boat, one of the big boats. We used to have some leisure craft which used to dock in Porthcawl. We can actually get up to 20 people on there on a tightly packed thing. People standing and cutching in lots. Yeah, lots, Doran. Okay. Right. So this is just a view from the stern. So you've got the helm sitting up at the top here, and you've got the VHF radio is here. We've got the sat nav. Look at me. I've forgotten the name now. I'm sure. We beat you with our tamer. Oh, there we go. I didn't know. As we've got somebody else who's on the lifeboat crew, I should have asked that first off, isn't it? Oh, fantastic. Right. Yeah. So we've got our radar on the side, and I've forgotten the name now. So we've got a directional finder radio as well. Anybody help me up with this chart plotter? Thank you very much. Yes. I don't know why I'm calling it a sat nav. I'm been on the car too long. So this is our first, our second, and third man seat. And then we've got a fourth man seat here, which I'll show you in another picture, is where we keep our lifeboat equipment, our first aid equipment on the Atlantic 85 as well. Oh, there we go. No, that's great. Hi, Ben. Thanks. Oh, excellent. You could probably teach me a few tricks then as well. Awesome. So here we go. Next one, this is our first aid room. So it's nice and calm in our first aid room if we ever have to bring any casualties. Nice and quiet for assessment. The lifeboat doctor could come down here. They've got extra equipment on the side there, which they can then use to assess the casualty with. Or if the ambulance crew need to come here, there's a shower in the back as well, and we keep all our extra equipment, our bits and pieces, in that cupboard over there, which I'll show you a photo of now. Yeah. And our O2 storage, yes, it's just down on the right-hand side there. And flare storage is in the box over here, where we keep all our big flares, our big parachute flares on the side. Oh, there's a rice cooker there as well, I think. I don't know what that's doing there, but yeah, that shouldn't be there. Right, so here we go. So what can you guys see as CFRs? You would be familiar with all of these, but what can you see there that you might not have come across as CFRs? So on the life, yeah, as the casualty carers, we're allowed to administer all of these under certain conditions. We've got these casualty care cards, which we work through normally. GTN, Sturgeon, yes, Paul, that's right. Yeah, trusty seasick tablets, absolutely. So there's a BVM kit and associated masks, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. But yeah, this one here, Sturgeon, which works like I don't know if you guys have heard of Ondansetron. I don't, a lot of you maybe worked out alongside EMTs or paramedics and heard of Ondansetron. That's our anti-sickness medication. It's a very good one, but as we don't have it, also very expensive apparently. But as we don't have that, we use the Sturgeon. But as you guys can tell, we've got all the usual ones there. So you could probably name them for me better. So for asthma, for hypoglycemia, that sort of stuff, and then obviously working our way down for aspirin for sort of cardiac events or for acute coronary syndrome. GTN would be for obviously for angina, and the paracetamol for injury, sort of long bone fractures. So if you guys as CFRs, if you were down any sort of lifeboat station and you knew and you come across something and the lifeboat station is open, somebody who's casualty care trained, you would be able to go and ask a casualty carer to say, look, I think this guy is suffering from this. Can you give me a hand? I know you might have some medicine, and they will come and assess the casualty, and you could actually do the casualty in that way. So this is what we're trying to do, is to sort of do this multi-agency working, and you know, I think the CFRs and the lifeguards, the RNLI lifeguards, always work closely together. So this is just another option. So for you guys. Yeah, so all the crew that have done the casualty care course can administer them then as well. That's right, Ben. Yeah, excellent. So we'll move on. Oh, that's the other thing. Make sure there's no allergies before we administer everything. Obviously, make sure there's no allergies. So on our Atlantic 85, we've got the first aid kit is down in there. And once again, dry storage, unfortunately, is very, very limited. We've got wet storage in the back for you know, sort of the knives, the torches, the stretchers that we use. We've got something called a PS1 stretcher, and that can all get wet. That's not a problem. But all the other bits, we really have to keep them all in a dry bag, which is then kept underneath there. And that's our first aid kit there. It's got a few scribbles on it, but as you can see, there's a little neck collar there as well, and some frac straps, and our oxygen kit as well is in there. And I'll show you a picture of that now, guys, because our oxygen is kept like you guys of CFRs have your big green bag. We keep ours in our oxygen and our masks in there, and we keep our actual first aid kit in there. Okay, so you can have a little squiz now. Yeah, minimal storage. Our frac straps are down there. Adjustable neck collars, and yeah, like I said, with all our wet storage, unfortunately, we have very, very limited dry storage on board. Okay, here's our first aid kit. Like I say, there's not much in there. You guys have all been exposed to this. We've got all your bandages and things here, and you'll be familiar with that. Over here in this little pouch, we've got all the medicines. And there's the Stugaron down there. It's not why these. And then once again, you can discuss with the lifeboat casualty carer on the best course of treatment for the casualty, because you guys as CFRs will have some skills when it comes to oxygen administration, and you'll have extra masks, which we won't have on board. So. And there's our Trust Keep Casualty Care cards, which is like your algorithms that you have. This was our algorithm on these casualty care cards. Okay. So, as casualty carers, we have a little bit of a different skill set, equipment and medicines that the CFRs don't have. But then again, you've got some things that we don't have. The differences aren't necessarily a weakness, but it could be considered a strength, as the type of patient that we encounter. If you know what the other one has, you can always say, look, you know, there's a lifeboat station. I think this person is suffering from seasickness or has got a fracture. Maybe we can get him some paracetamol before the ambulance arrives, or if the ambulance is delayed, for example. Right, so the UK police and ambulance, also this is another challenge that we have. The UK police and the ambulance work on a different radio system that we do down the Porthcawl RNLI, and the Coast Guard. We work on the VHF, whereas ambulance and police work on something called Tetra. And in the past, where we've had cliff fallers, I know there's particularly one job, we've had a cliff faller, and all the messages had to be relayed back to the Milford Haven Coast Guard, which is still a challenge for us for future, which people are discussing about, and having some sort of frequency that we could all use. But I'm not sure whether they're willing to pay for it. I think that's one of the big. Right. Let me just have a look here. Right. So yeah, we've got slightly different scoops, board and extrication equipment that we have. But if you guys see anybody who's stuck somewhere on the rocks, you know who to call. We can always help extricate a patient, and you'll see something a little bit later on. But the algorithm that we have, and it'll show you on the next one, we work broadly the same as you CFRs, with the doctor, C for catastrophic hemorrhage, A, and then C for any sort of spinal damage, B, C, D format. Okay. Lovely. And in broad terms, the RNLI deal with casualties who are either ill, immersed, or injured. And those are the sort of three categories that we deal with, where CFRs have more training in, so maybe collapsed patient or somebody with looks like angina. We just have these broad categories, and we've got flip cards in that we can look through to see how best to treat a patient. Here's our algorithm, and as you guys can see, we've got just on the left-hand side here, Dr. C, AB, and then check for the mechanism of injury if they've maybe damaged their C-spine before you move a patient. There's one interesting thing here as well, is with the RNLI, we don't distinguish between things like COPD, which you might have as CFRs. We don't have different masks. If somebody falls into a big sick, we either have somebody who's a little sick, so their normal parameters and their observations that we take forward with the normal parameters, they will be little sick. But as soon as they move over into the big sick category, so say their resps are up, or they have a higher breathing rate, or that their cap refill, for example, because we don't have a SATS probe like you guys do, if their cap refill is more than 3 seconds, they would all fall into the big sick category, and they would automatically get 15 liters of oxygen. So I know with you guys, you can titrate, you can look at the oxygen SATs and titrate it as needed, but with us, there's only either nothing or all. There's nothing in between, because once a person gets into the big sick category, we want to get them back safely and to an ambulance and definitive medical care as much as possible. All right. Right, so here is an oxygen storage bag, which is in our oxygen storage kit, not our first aid kit. Can you guys identify some things that you might have that we don't? Just have a look at that picture. I know it's not the best picture, unfortunately, but just have a look. Just have a look there, and just think about some things that you might have that we don't have. Eye gel, absolutely. It's one of the first things that stand out. Yeah, eye gels. Pediatric masks, yeah, we've got a little peds OPA there as well that you guys, I don't think you might have that one. Nasal, absolutely. So the masks that you guys have are different. So we've only got the non-rebreathing masks. We don't have any of the other 28% or nasal cannulae or Venturi masks. We've only got, like I said, either it's all or nothing when it comes to oxygen administration. And we also don't have kit, like I said, we don't have a SATS probe, and we don't tend to carry a pen torch, for example. We could just maybe use a normal torch. But yeah, that's the big standout, is that you guys have masks, and if your skills, you can maybe, if somebody's got COPD, you can say, oh, hang on a second, this patient has COPD, we should be titrating it. Oxygen level, so we not just have yes, and a BM, absolutely. You guys have BM kits, absolutely, which we don't, obviously, with all the salt and everything. We can't carry all the little electronics because they'll just get ruined. We've also got an aero chamber here, which is a spacer which we can use for salbutamol administration as well. Okay, no, well done. You guys are on the ball today. So this is just wrapped in another dry bag because, like they say, the salt water and the moisture just ruin just about everything. See, you guys have just recently had some new suctioning. I think we've got the same suctioning kit as you guys. Obviously, with the suctioning, you'll be wearing your your level 3 PPE, because that's to do with any sorts of stuff coming out of the mouth, and you want to protect yourself from COVID. So we've got that, we've got the spacer that we talked about, simple face mask. Oh yes, this one here with a one-way valve, so we can give casualty breaths, but I think in terms of the COVID, you got to do your dynamic risk assessment and not do that at the moment. And we've got BVM. Okay, so just some extra things that we have separately, which you guys again maybe don't, is we've got, once we've rescued a casualty, we want to put they're going to be cold and wet, for example. So we want to put an orange bag on them, and it's basically a bin liner that you're putting on, because it just helps to retain heat. You're going to have a hoodie as well on this side here. We're going to have a little hoodie to keep them warm, and the last thing then is an inflatable life jacket, which we'll put on, and that's in case once we put somebody on and they fall back into the water again, there's obviously that risk that they'll, if they're really unwell, that they won't be able to swim. So we've got to make sure that they're safe before we get them on board as well. And within reason, obviously, if we're doing a cardiac arrest, we won't be messing around with all this stuff, but we're trying to get them to safe landing area as soon as possible. But lovely. Okay, I think that about covers it. I've just got a little video here for you guys. You can watch. I'm not sure whether, can you hear?
Yes,
Right. Great. Can you guys tell me whether you could see that last video properly or not? Can you just type a message for me whether you could see that last video? No sound, is it? Oh, I apologize for that. Yeah, there's been a bit of. Oh, okay. I've got some links here at the end. I'll just put it down here for you. So if you want to look at that little video, it's the fourth one down. It's that one over there. If you just click on that link there, it should bring it up for you. Oh, I'm sorry I didn't have sound, because it's actually nice. It's actually nice to see, because it's got a nice little tune, but it just shows you some of the things that we go through. So the first bit was surfer that we rescued, a young surfer who got swept around the point at Southerndown, and he was in real trouble. The second one was a windsurfer in trouble, who got continued being swept out by the tide and the by the wind as well, and he was absolutely exhausted. The last one was a horse fall as well. So we were helping HEMS carry the patient to the helicopter. So get involved in all sorts of things we do, and I'm sure CFRs, you might get involved maybe in the same situation as well. Yeah, but here's a couple of links. I'm sure John will upload it for me, I think, if it was good enough. I'm not sure. But there's a couple of links there if you want to learn anything more about the Portugal Lifeboat Station or the RNLI in general. And there are some good links there. I just really wanted to thank you guys for sitting in on my little chat today. And I wanted to thank you for your interaction. You were very good and on the ball, and you could probably teach me a couple of things as well. So, but I basically just wanted to say, hopefully you've learned a little bit more about the history of the RNLI and lifeboats. Hopefully you've learned a bit more about the casualty care process, and I hope that we can all work together in the future as casualty carers, RNLI, Coast Guard, HEMS, anybody involved in saving lives. Yeah, and as long as we learn a little bit more about each other and know each other's skill set, we can always help work together. All right, so thank you very much, guys. Yeah, fab. Thank
you, Etienne. It's really good session. I learned loads. It's good to see what different agencies are doing. We're going to have a really busy summer. We're going to have a lot of staycations. So the guys on the coast are hopefully going to be working alongside the RNLI, both lifeboat and lifeguards. So no, it's good to see that we do the same assessment, A, B, C, D, E approach to everything. We've both following flowcharts or flashcards, which are good, and it shows the differences. So RNLI will bring other things where CFRs will bring more clinical knowledge, where you've got some more equipment. So it's really good that we can work together and we're all there to treat the patient. So no, it was a really good session. Thank you very much, Etienne.
Great. Thank you very much, guys. Awesome. I hope to see you all soon.
Cool, guys. If you want to drop out, we have recorded the session, so we'll put a recording up.